Hi guys, how's it going? It's Clarissa with That Dumb Movie Show, and hello also from this cat hanger in the background that keeps scaring people. I'm sorry. But hey, apparently it's horror season because we've had Us and now we've got Pet Sematary. This is the second adaptation of the Stephen King book. The first one came out in 1989. Now, unfortunately, I have not read the book and I haven't seen the original film, but I did have a very long conversation with someone who did both. So I'm hoping that I'm coming at this not totally uninformed. Because my general takeaway is that I was down with this film for most of it. I liked the tone, but then just in the last 10 minutes, it fell apart. It's like the film realized it had no idea how to end and it just panicked. So to wind back, Pet Sematary has a pretty wild plot. We follow a doctor played by Jason Clarke and his wife Amy Seimetz who move from Boston to rural Maine with their 2 young children, largely just because the dad wants to slow things down and spend more time with his children. And so they bought this big house with acres of land, and then on the day that they move in, their daughter discovers just a pet cemetery in the middle of the forest, and their neighbour Jud Crandall, played by John Lithgow, talks about it in this very suspicious, very mysterious way, and eventually we find out why. Although it's important to point out here that this version, directed by Kevin Kolsch and Dennis Widmeyer, does deviate from the book. Although what's weird is that the changes that they make are very dramatic, but they don't really change anything about the nature of the story or the themes or even the tone. So really, those changes just feel kind of unnecessary, outside of maybe it's for people who, you know, have read the book and seen the original film and still want to be a little surprised. But I think what I really appreciated in this approach is that it embraced the Stephen King sense of weirdness, because I always feel like people underplay just how crazy these stories are. I mean, a clown in a sewer. Really. And Pet Sematary, if you reduce it to the basic plot, it's not that outlandish, but the thing that Stephen King does is that he just keeps adding details and he adds subplots and he adds detours and he adds layers of surrealness and weirdness, and I think that this film does embrace that to some degree. For example, there's a scene where the dad has like some kind of dream or hallucination or vision where a deceased person comes along into his house and leads him out through the door, and then suddenly he's just in the middle of the forest and he looks back and it's just this doorway surrounded by trees, and it's like that freakiness I appreciate. There's an intelligence to how this film is constructed. I mean, it didn't really get me scare-wise, thankfully. No nightmares, but it did have some well-constructed, well-timed, and surprising jump scares. Partially because what Pet Sematary does very well is anticipate audience reaction, so it can either then play into it or subvert it, and it does this with humor as well. I mean, you're probably aware that a cat plays a fairly major role in this film, and I think the film realizes that there is a limit as to how scary just a cat can be, because, you know, there are fluffy and cute little animal buddies. And so what they do instead is that the cat is cleverly used as a way to release tension. So he'll suddenly appear on screen and you'll jump and then you'll laugh about it because you feel silly, and so you have that moment of release. Also, there's a thing that they do with the cat where he's meant to have like a sunken eye, but it just looks like he's constantly raising his eyebrow, like he's like, oh, hello, a meow. And so it all kind of works and it hits the right tone until it reaches that last 10 minutes, because they try to do an ending that is very different from the book and it's just too much. It's over the top. It's silly, because that original ending really plays on a small moment and a small action, and this is just the opposite of that, and it does not work. My other issue is, and I know that I can't really blame the film for this because this is more something that Stephen King does, but he has this tendency to set up things and set up a lot of things that he never follows through with. And I won't say what with here, but it happens multiple times in the book and in the film. But I think when you're dealing with film, it's so much more of a condensed medium that there's more significance to every single piece of information that you put on screen. So it just really jars here. You have this kind of Chekhov's gun situation where things are introduced and then we just never hear about it again. And that's also what's so frustrating about the last 10 minutes, because you just realize all of these things are not coming back. So I'm mixed on Pet Sematary, because I wouldn't actively dissuade you guys from going to see it, because I was entertained, but at the same time I left feeling dissatisfied. But if you've had a chance to see Pet Sematary, I would love to know what you guys thought. You can let me know down in the comments below, or you can hit me up on Twitter, details down in that description box. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe so we can hang out and talk about movies. I'll see you guys soon. Bye!